Okay, so this is where we left off our animation intro, this square randomly moving around the screen, randomly changing size. I'd like to do some more with animation. I want to start with showing you how you can also animate color. And then also we'll look at how to control these animations with if statements. Look at a couple of ways to do that. Okay, so let's go back to our code, just a quick review. Remember, we set up our canvas and our graphics context, right? Set the width and the height of the canvas, wonderful. These variables are what help us to change values, right? We update these variables, and then we use those variables when we're drawing. Okay, and then this request animation frame loop, right? That's what causes this. Maybe I should add a comment here. This is like my main program loop, right? That repeats, and I think it's generally a 60 FPS or frames per second. That's kind of the default for what a browser can do. So 60 frames per second. So this request animation frame will try to time it so that it happens consistently every 1/60th of a second. Okay, on this note, what was I going to do? Oh yeah, we talked about this idea of animating things, and we animated the X and then the width and the height of the rectangle. I want to talk about how we can animate color. Now, if we're going to animate color, we can animate these numerical values easily, but a word, how do I change a word? Well, we're not. What we're going to do is we're going to remember that we can do color in different ways. We can describe color by names, or we can use this RGB, and maybe I'm going to go red, green, maybe we want a blue, right? So the amount of red, the amount of green, the amount of blue from 0 to 255, no red, no green, full blue. And now if I run my program, save that, yay, it's blue. Okay. Now what that's done is it's introduced numbers, although in kind of a weird way because these numbers are inside of a string, right, inside of the quotations. So I need to break these numbers outside of the quotation. So let's say we want to animate this, the amount of blue. Maybe I want it to start at blue, and then I'll decrease the amount of blue so that it goes down to 0, and then it'll turn black. All right. So what I need to do first is I need to break this number outside of the string. So let's break our string apart. So I'm going to do a quotation here plus, and then plus a quotation like so. So this should still, let's just try this, it should still give me blue. Remember when we add strings together, it just kind of takes this string here, adds this number, which it converts to a string, and then adds this bracket at the end. Okay, so we've kind of just broken this up outside of the string into these 3 different parts. But now what I can do here is I can create a variable. Let rectangle blue be assigned 255. And then instead of using the 255 here, I can go rectangle blue, like so. So I declare my variable, I initialize it to 255, and I use it. And this shouldn't change anything, right? Good, it's still blue because it's still 255. But now I can go to this update variables section. And like I said, you can do this anywhere, but it's just good to keep it organized. I generally keep all this updating variables and logic stuff. Eventually we'll do if statements, and then try to keep all the drawing stuff together. In here I can go rectangle blue. Let's just do the quick minus minus. Right? Remember, if I go, the long way would be rectangle blue is assign rectangle blue -1. Right? I want to decrease it by 1. A shorter way would be minus equals 1. And even shorter, because we're changing it by 1, is just minus minus. Okay, that should decrease the amount of blue until it turns to black. Cool. Okay, and then we could do other things too, right? I could also break out this 0. So do a quotation plus, and then a plus quotation. It doubled up on me. Just get rid of one of those. And now this 0 is the number for the amount of red. So let's go rectangle red, which doesn't exist yet. Let rectangle red be assigned 0. So initialize it to 0, and then I'll go rectangle red plus plus. And what we should see now is the amount of blue will decrease and the amount of red will increase. So in the middle we had this kind of purple, but at the end we get full red. Okay, anyway, that was just showing you how, yeah, we can break up this color string into these different variables, right? The RGB, here's my red, here's my green, here's my blue. And again, you could pop this out as a variable too and animate the amount of green as well. Okay, now let's start talking about how to control these animations, because so far it just happens, right? And I can't control this, it's just going. And remember, if I didn't have this random, right, let's, I'm actually just going to comment this line out for a second. If I did rectangle x plus equals 5, right, this thing just, whoop, bye-bye, right, just goes off the screen and keeps going. All right, so why don't we, let's slow that down a little bit to just 2, and let's start more on the left side of the screen. Oops, 100. Right, so now it slowly goes across. Why don't we do something like this? I want to control this animation. Well, what's causing the animation is all of these statements here, right? These statements are the ones that are changing things, right? Causing the variables to change their values. So I'm going to suggest that maybe if I put all of this inside of an if statement. Okay, so I'm just going to paste all those inside of an if statement. Now I can control whether these things move based on what's inside of here. So let's say, for example, that I'd like this thing to keep moving until it reaches a certain spot. I think the screen is 800, maybe once it reaches 600. So the way I want to think about it is I want to think to myself, well, I want this thing to keep moving as long as this x value is less than 600. Right? If it's not less than 600, I want it to stop. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use rectangle x and say I want to animate as long as rectangle x is less than 600. So if that's true, it'll do this code. So here we go. Rectangle x is less than 600. But once rectangle x is not less than 600, it shouldn't do it. Man, I love it when that happens. Okay, let's see what happened. All right, maybe it didn't refresh. Let's just do a quick little console.log of our rectangle x. And that's often a key thing. If you're doing an if statement and there's a variable in it, it's a good idea to just check that variable to see what's actually happening to it. Okay, we'll save. I'm going to hit refresh to make sure. Oh yeah, no, it's definitely doing it. Oh, you know what? I think maybe, oh, I'm zoomed in. That's why. Oh, so look, it did stop. So this is very useful, right? Printing out this variable is great because it shows that it hits 600 and it's not updating that variable anymore. We just can't see it. And I don't know why I'm zoomed in. We'll just reset. And let's make our canvas. Well, we can do 600 by 400. It's fine. Let's just stop this at 500 instead. Okay. Now hopefully you should see that yes, the numbers are less than 500, so it keeps moving. But once it hits 500, it stops. Okay, cool. So that's one way to do it, is put all the stuff in an if statement and have some sort of control. And you can control based on its location. We could have also said maybe I wanted to keep moving or keep animating as long as they're still blue. Right? So, well, if rectangle blue is greater than 0, then I'll keep going. But once rectangle blue is 0 and it's fully red, it'll then stop. Okay, so you can play around with anything inside of this if statement here. All right. I will quickly show you maybe one more thing. Remember how we talked about this main loop running at 60 frames per second? Another way that we can control or we can test is the amount of time that's been taken, or the number of frames that has happened. So I could create a variable here called frame count and then initialize that to 0, right? Because at the beginning of the program, when the page loads, the frame count hasn't started yet, so it's 0. And then in my loop here, get rid of that now, I'm just going to do a little frame count plus plus, right? Just update my frame count. Okay. And that should, and let's just test this, console.log frame count. That should show us this frame count, which approximately runs 60 frames, 60 frames a second. Okay. What I can do now is, since I have this variable frame count, I could do something like this. I could say, hey, if frame count is less than 120, this will mean I want it to animate, right? I want it to change these variables for 2 seconds. 1, 2. Perfect. Okay, and of course you can change that, right? Add another 60 seconds here. That would be 3 seconds. There you go. Or you can switch this and say, hey, only animate after 3 seconds, right? If frame count is greater than 180. So now it's not moving, but after 3 seconds, it'll then start to move. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Just a quick recap. We took this color, right? So same here with the white, you could break that up into RGB. And we broke up that string so that we could include these variables inside of our string. And once we have those as variables, we can then animate the color. And then the other thing we looked at was if statements, right? Testing those variables, running this animation only while certain. And of course, you could pop some things out of this variable, right? Maybe cut this out. And I want it to always keep changing size, right? So it's always changing size, but the other animations will run. Anyway, so using if statements to control when our animation happens, and then also this frame count, right? This frame count idea can help you with timing in your program. Okay, I will leave it at that. I hope that made sense. In the next video, I think we'll get at maybe controlling animations with input, like mouse input, keyboard input, that kind of stuff. Okay, that's all for now. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.